Good morning, everyone. My name is Tammy Smith, and I'm a program specialist with the Office of Federal Programs. I would like to welcome you to our webinar entitled Homeless Children and Youth Access to Early Childhood Programs on behalf of Superintendent Hoffmeister in the Office of Federal Programs. We are happy that you've joined us this morning. We're going to ask that you would put your questions in the chat box, and I will be answering those at the end of my presentation. You can type those questions in at any time, and this webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the OSDE website probably by Friday. It takes a couple of days to get it up. Once you go to the website that's listed there, you'll click on federal programs and it will be under Title IX. So today we're just going to do a real quick review of the Mckinney-Vento definition of homelessness. We're going to talk about some statistics for children under age 6, briefly why the first 5 years matter in a child's life, some barriers that families with preschool children run into when trying to get their children into preschool, preschool enrollment, preschool programs, and we're going to talk about Headstart. Okay, so the Mckinney-Vento definition of homelessness are individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, including those who are sharing the houses of other persons due to loss of housing, economic hardship, or a similar reason. And we oftentimes refer to this as being doubled up. If they're living in motels, hotels, trailer parks, or camping grounds due to lack of alternative adequate accommodations, living in emergency or transitional shelters, or the children have been abandoned in hospitals, children and youth who are living in cars, parks, public spaces, abandoned buildings, substandard housing, bus or train stations, or similar settings, and migratory children who qualify as homeless. And of course, we could also put unaccompanied youth there as well. So major causes of homelessness for children in the United States include the high poverty rate, lack of affordable housing, with the pandemic going on, the evictions and foreclosures, racial disparities, limited education of the parents, layoff, unemployment and underemployment, just the challenges of being a single parent and having to pay the bills, do that all by yourself, as well as make all those decisions. Health problems, including mental health, abuse, neglect, family dysfunction, impact of trauma, natural and other disasters, runaway and homeless youth. And you know, that list of why people are homeless could go on and on. So this is definitely not an all-inclusive list. So looking at children under the age of 6, and these numbers are from 2018, which was the latest that I could find, given me this information. So the total population of this age group, 23,977,152, and of that number, those experiencing homelessness, 1,455,537. or 1 in 16 children under the age of 6 are experiencing homelessness. And if you look at the statistics, only about 9% of that number are being served either in public school, preschools, or Headstart or early Headstart. So there's a huge amount of children under the age of 6 that are not being served by any preschool or early preschool. Just to go a little bit further, 1 in every 30 children in the United States goes to sleep without being in a home of their own or their family's home. And about half of those children are under 6 years of age. 1 out of every 3 homeless children has a mental health issue by age 8, and over 1/5 of homeless preschoolers have serious emotional problems, but less than 1/3 of them receive treatment. So this is kind of why we're talking about early childhood now. Um, Homelessness can be the biggest risk in early childhood. Homelessness impacts child development beyond poverty by causing lack of security. They don't have basic needs being met with food or a place to sleep. They're exposed to dangers, stress, and trauma. They are very mobile. Their families are very mobile, move around a lot. They don't have routine. They're, living in chronic inconsistency. They suffer from stressed attachment. Children and parents are unavailable to one another or to caregivers. And then they're also living in compromised, often crowded living conditions and the risk associated with staying in other people's homes. So there are a lot of risks for these children under the age of 6 when their families are homeless. So why do the first 5 years matter? Homelessness harms children and leads to lower birth rates. If that mother is homeless, she may have food insecurities and not be able to eat properly. Their acute and chronic health problems result, hunger, sleep deprivation, developmental delays, attachment issues, social, emotional, behavioral issues. Some of the long-term educational outcomes, they have to repeat grades, they suffer higher rates of expulsion or suspension and higher rates of dropping out in high school. Mothers who are experiencing homelessness have higher rates of depression, severe traumatized history, and post-traumatic stress disorder, which can influence their parenting. So it's important that we try to reach out to those families with children under the age of 5 so that maybe we can offer services to combat this. Common barriers preventing access to early learning programs. Subsidies for childcare are not always available, and homeless families are not able to pay for childcare. Transportation is an issue. They have problems with coming up with the proper documentation. They don't understand the enrollment procedures. Many times they are invisible. That's an age group that's not focused on. When they reach kindergarten, they're focused on being in school and getting help that way. But if they're younger than kindergarten age, they're kind of in that invisible part of their life. The family's very mobile. So even if someone wants to help them, the family may not be around long enough to get that help. Oftentimes, parents who have children at that very young age are reluctant to share information. They're afraid that someone's going to come in and take the children away because of their homeless situation. And then sometimes it's just a lack of outreach by teachers and providers, and not necessarily because they don't want, the teachers or providers don't want to help, but oftentimes they're just not aware of the younger children or younger siblings in the home. So if we think back on what McKinney-Vento says, it says that homeless children and youth are to be granted immediate enrollment into school. And that applies to preschools as well, with the caveat as long as there is space. So if there's space in a preschool and the parent comes to enroll their homeless preschool, they should also have that immediate enrollment, even if they don't have all the paperwork and documentation that is normally required. If there's not space, they should be put on the top of the wait list. And once their space opens up, they are put into that preschool. Some preschool programs do hold slots open for McKinney-Vento children. Another thing that is an issue is school of origin. So one of the things that was amended when ESSA came about was they amended the McKinney-Vento Act to include preschools specifically within the definition of school of origin. So as a result, children experiencing homelessness can remain in the preschool they attended when permanently housed, or the preschool in which they were last enrolled, if that is in their best interest. Just like with the older kiddos, who are able to stay in their school of origin if they're, elementary, middle school, or high school. The same is with preschools, okay? And not only do they have the right to remain in that school of origin, but they also have the right to receive transportation to preschool, even if preschool transportation is not typically provided by that LEA. And that transportation continues for as long as the child is homeless or until the end of the academic year in which the child moves into permanent housing. And the reason this is so important is because we have a limited number of preschool spaces in our schools. If they move from one district to another, there may not be room in that new district's class or classes for this preschooler. But since they have amended the McKinney-Vento Act and allowed the preschoolers to remain in the school of origin, if they move, close enough and it's found to be in that preschooler's best interest to stay in the school of origin, they don't lose their spot in their preschool class. So that's an important piece of McKinney-Vento Act. Preschool program type. So what we typically see are preschool programs operated or administered by an LEA, Headstart programs receiving funding from an LEA or for which an LEA receives the grant, preschool special education services operated or funded by the LEA or mandated under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, preschool programs and services administered or funded by the LEA using Title I or similar government grants, and home-based early childhood educational services funded and administered by an LEA. And I'm going to talk a little bit here specifically about Head Start. Those of you that work in schools with or districts with preschools, you pretty much know about those. What's missing, I think, is the part with Head Start. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about Head Start and how that can help your district with these students. Head Start promotes the school readiness of young children from low-income families by enhancing their cognitive, social, and emotional development. Head Start programs prepare America's most vulnerable young children to succeed in school and in life beyond school. So to achieve this, Head Start programs deliver services to children aged birth to 5 and their families in core areas of early learning, health, and family well-being. And notice that the Head Start works with children from birth to age 5. Most of our public school preschools only work with 4 and 5-year-olds, some 3-year-olds, but mostly it's just that 4 and 5-year-olds. So Head Start does have an early Head Start program where they get the young babies in and start working with them as well. Who does Head Start serve? Pregnant women, children birth to 5, and their families. And then there's some income eligibility requirements, families who earn below 100% of the federal poverty level, families on public assistance, like TANF or SSI. Over income exceptions can be made. And then families who are 35% between 100 and 100% of federal poverty level under certain conditions. But regardless of income, if the child or children are in a homelessness situation or in foster care, they are automatically eligible to be served by Head Start. Head Start uses a whole child and whole family approach, and they provide quality and comprehensive social, emotional, physical, and mental health services, comprehensive, evidence-based, and rigorous learning curriculum, services and supports dedicated specifically to parents and family members, and they engage with community partners to expand access to comprehensive services for children and their families. As far as homelessness goes, Head Start prioritizes community assessment to identify and address the greatest needs. Homelessness is a designated priority for Head Start programs. Children and families experiencing homelessness are categorically eligible, regardless, again, of income. Families are supported to address their housing needs. So Head Start will partner with community agencies and help find housing for families if that's something that is needed. And they do collect data on children and families that are experiencing homelessness. So this just lists some of the services that Head Start can provide. And again, you see that they do parent and family health services. They do health screenings and referrals for vision and hearing. They work with mental health, social emotional well-being, oral health, nutrition, physical activity. They have health advisory committees, and they do children and program safety. This slide here shows you some of the curriculum as far as what they teach. They have cognitive and social emotional parts of their curriculum. Their early learning outcomes align with their teaching, their assessments, the curriculum. They use assessment data, and they have restrictions on expulsions and suspensions. Again, trying to keep those children in the Head Start program, and they work with the families to do so. Head Start standards that include homelessness. They do community needs assessment. They use the McKinney-Vento education definition, which is important. Some agencies, including HUD, have a different definition of homelessness, and that cuts out some services that they can provide to our homeless students. But Head Start does use the McKinney-Vento education definition. They recruit homeless students. They enroll. There's attendance. They provide transportation. Some of our preschools are not able to provide transportation, but Head Start does. They have community partnerships, and they support families in transition. So if they're moving from one place to another, they can help them get set up with a new Head Start program if that's found to be in the best interest of the child. Okay, so when working with homeless families, as I mentioned earlier, they're going to make sure that homeless children under age 6 are enrolled in their program. If the program is full, children experiencing homelessness are prioritized for enrollment and go to the top of the wait list. They also will allow the children to attend Head Start while documents are being gathered. So again, that immediate enrollment, they don't turn them away because they don't have the proper documentation. And each family's housing situation would be assessed as part of enrollment and the child identified as homeless based on their living circumstances. Family service staff supports families in addressing housing needs. As I said, they work with community agencies to find housing for a family if that's something that is needed. Again, if the families must relocate, they can keep a child enrolled even if the family moves out of that attendance area, and they will partner to provide that transportation. If the child must leave their program, they will help them develop a transition program or plan to a new program. And so these are just some tips on working with families with children under the age of 6. Again, that's not always something that LEAs focus on, especially if they don't have a preschool program. I would say that anytime you're working with homeless, if you can use another word besides homeless, because that has such a negative connotation to it, maybe use in transition or, there's other things that you can use, but don't use the word homeless. That offends people or puts them off. Make sure that all your school personnel is trained, especially those enrollment personnel, trained to identify potential homeless students and families, and to ask about, do you have siblings, or does this child you're enrolling have siblings under the age of 6? Have several points of contact at a school site so that it's not just one person trying to do all the work with the homeless. Mandate that every student completes the residency questionnaire when they enroll in school, which again is a way to determine if they are potentially living in a homeless situation. And on that residency questionnaire or your enrollment form, ask about younger siblings living in the home. And remember that homelessness is not abuse or neglect, and it's not reportable. So you should always assure families that you're not going to be reporting them for being homeless, because lack of housing alone is not legal grounds for removing a child from a family. You have to keep that in mind as well. Okay, this is all that I have. Do you have specific questions? This is a topic that we could spend days on. And so I know I've just kind of hit some of the highlights. I really wanted to put out there about Headstart, because I think that's an underused resource in many of our communities, because they can do so much more for the homeless students and their families sometimes than we at the local district can do. So if you will put any questions that you have, let me see if I can go to the chat box. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer put that this was good information. I'll wait just a few seconds more to see if there are any questions. In the meantime, I'm going to put, this is some resources that I used to put together this PowerPoint. Do all the things you mentioned here also apply to children in foster care, immediate enrollment, etc.? You know, you would have to contact Naomi Ward about foster care. She is our program specialist for foster care, and I don't want to speak out of turn and answer in a way that I don't know for sure. If transportation is a barrier for a 4-year-old pre-K Mckinney-Vento student, can Mckinney-Vento alt transportation be used to ensure attendance? Yes, it can. Does that answer your question, Sabra? Thank you. Again, this age group it's so important to get them in preschool, and you guys out there know better than me all of the ramifications of that the importance of early childhood. And so the earlier that we can get help for these children who have so many things going against them already, the better for them. Is it still true you can't be the foster care and homeless liaison? I assume you're meaning, can you be the foster care liaison and the homeless liaison? And, you know, I don't know that you can't be, that the same person can't be both. I will have to get back on that with you, Kristen, because I'm not aware that you cannot, that cannot be the same person. So I will get back with you. Oh, thank you, Saber. Saber says only the state coordinator can't be both. I'm going to put up, this is my contact information. Let's see. I saw that during monitoring a few years ago. Okay, Kristen, I'll check on that, but I think Saber's right. I don't think that there's any restrictions on that, but I will check for you and email you the information. This is my contact information. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me either at 405-522-3260 or my email, tammy.smith@sde.ok.gov. Okay, no more questions. I am going to let everybody get back to their busy days. I so appreciate you taking a little bit of your time this morning to join us on the webinar. Again, this will be posted on our OSDE website under federal programs and then under Title IX. And again, it should be up there by the end of the week. So thanks again. You guys stay warm, stay healthy, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope. Bye-bye.